Stephen King has created eerie fictional towns for the state of Maine to coexist along with some real ones for his treasure trove of books. He was inspired by Bridgeton to write The Mist and by Durham to create the fictional town of Jerusalem's Lot. Derry, the home of IT, is based on the real city of Bangor. Terrifying things happen in these towns and one can only sigh in relief that the stories are all fiction. However, there are several places around the world that would give King's creations a run for their money. On this list are just a few of them. Top 10 modern horror novels more terrifying than a Stephen King book. 10 Terror in Oahu Mysteries of Hawaii. Top 2 haunted places around East Oahu. Oahu is the third largest Hawaiian island and is home to around 1 million people. Here you will find Waikiki and Pearl Harbor as well as Lanikai Beach, which is one of the most beautiful beaches in the world. This type of description doesn't lend itself to creepiness, does it? However, when night falls over Oahu, the spirits of the dead come out to play. Should you find yourself on the 16th Avenue Bridge in Kaimaki after dark, don't be surprised if you find a small, cold hand worming its way into yours. It is believed that a little girl was killed in a hit-and-run incident on this bridge and that her spirit is constantly looking for someone to lead her home. If that isn't quite unsettling enough for you, there have been several reports of a ghostly woman rattling and pounding on toilet stall doors in the old YLI Drive-In Theater. When the unlucky person inside the toilet stall opened the door, they found a floating apparition wearing a long dress but with no face and no feet right in front of them. 9 The Horror of Real Felipe. Haunted Real Felipe Fortress, Lima, Peru. Paranormal ghost stories in history. South America is home to Angel Falls, Machu Picchu, Copper Canyon, excellent cuisine and vintage cars. Here you can hike to Rainbow Mountain, dance the salsa, gaze at the Christ the Redeemer statue or watch football matches alongside an electrifying crowd. The continent is also home to some of the scariest places on Earth. The narrow, U-shaped Real Felipe Fortress in Lima held prisoners who were forced to stand the entire time they were imprisoned. Before arriving at their horrific destination, these inmates had to traverse the narrow corridors all the while trying to duck out of the way of pails of boiling water thrown at them. Many of them died after enduring 2 months of hell in Real Felipe. These days, the horrors continue, but now they are of the ghostly variety. Visitors to the fortress have reported seeing pale apparitions with long hair walking the drawbridge and grim-looking soldiers throwing themselves off the parapets. Some have even reported glimpsing demonic children appearing in the narrow passageways. 8 New Zealand's spookiest spots. Haunted Auckland investigates. Kingseat Psychiatric Hospital. The island nation of New Zealand isn't inadequate in unpleasant areas. Here the valiant on the most fundamental level can visit Waitomo Caves Hotel, where visitors have seen baths dribbling with blood and experienced ghosts going directly through them. Or on the other hand, if rotting mental emergency clinic structures are more their speed, they can take a visit through Kingseat Psychiatric Hospital, where temperatures dive for reasons unknown. Furniture is moved around by concealed hands, and doorbells ring when nobody is close to them. At that point there is Camp Adair in Hunua. This camp was set up in 1913 and obliges church withdrawals, sports groups and group structures. It is likewise the site of a creepy metropolitan legend which has it that a red-headed educator executed a gathering of kids in the schoolhouse building. Some who have visited the camp lately have revealed the phantom of a red-headed man looking at them through the windows. 7 Don't go in there. Frequented Russia, Rotunda, Street. Petersburg, Russia. The nation of Russia covers more than 1/8 of Earth's involved land region, so there is adequate space for both awesome scenes and delightful design just as deserted and out unpleasant spots. This incorporates the Kasovnikov House in Moscow, where an elderly person with a mound is said to meander the road while grieving the deficiency of his abundance, just as the Mikhailovsky Castle, where Tsar Pavel I actually plays the violin by a specific window. Russia is likewise the spot you will discover the Rotunda, a round corridor situated inside an 18th century building. It is reputed that the lobby was a gathering place for Freemasons at one point before it turned into the home base of melodic gatherings during the 70s and 80s. It is accepted that if an individual composes a genuine wish on the spray painting covered dividers, it would work out as expected, yet at an awful cost. Try not to go close to the cellar, however, as it is said that on the off chance that somebody enters it single-handedly, they will either return a couple of years more seasoned or turn out to be totally crazy. 6. Leave the stones alone. 8th November 1520. Stockholm bloodbath starts under Denmark's Christian II. Sweden gave us ABBA, rock set, Avicii, utilitarian and supportable plan, astounding espresso, and has the absolute most hypnotizing scenes on the planet. It is likewise in Sweden, where you ought to never get on a silver train referred to as Silverpilen, as it will move you to an unwanted station in a timberland from which you can stay away for the indefinite future. Train stations are not by any means the only unpleasant things in this country. There is additionally the principal square in Gamla Stan, Old Town, where blood streams across the cobblestones every November as though re-sanctioning the Stockholm bloodbath that occurred over a century prior. 92 individuals from the Swedish respectability were either executed or hanged in the square since they went against the Dane. To respect these spirits, a red structure close by joined 92 white stones in its plan. Should anybody attempt to eliminate one of these stones, the apparition of the killed individual addressing that stone will ascend from its grave frequents Stockholm for eternity. All things considered, every one of the white stones stay flawless. 5. Ghosts of history. Traveler plane crashes in Antarctica, Mount Erebus disaster, Air New Zealand Flight 901, 4K. Antarctica isn't sufficiently cold to keep the phantoms under control. Truth be told, it is supposed to be quite possibly the most spooky puts on Earth. Rumors from far and wide suggest that while the travelers and researchers of yesteryear that once persevered through this brutal scene may be a distant memory, their spirits actually stick around. For example, Sir Edmund Hillary accepted that he had seen Sir Ernest Shackleton's apparition in his unwanted cabin when he and his New Zealand party arrived at Antarctica in 1958. In 1979, a plane flying vacationers on a road trip from New Zealand collided with the side of Mount Erebus, executing every one of the 257 individuals ready. The bodies of the expired were purportedly put away at McMurdo Station, which is an American base on Ross Island. Before long, guests to the island started to report hearing immaterial voices, and seeing a path of impressions that finished suddenly. There are even supposed apparition mountains that lie under 4 meters of ice and have never been seen by people, just planned by radar. 4. Fear and fear in the forested areas. Deserted Japanese school heard creepy music. Japan is a phenomenal travel objective that offers probably the most stunning sights on the planet, including Mount Fuji, Shinto shrines, Buddhist temples, and scenes shrouded in cherry blooms. It is additionally the origination of a few frightening metropolitan legends and blood and gore flicks, a large number of which base on unpleasant areas. These areas incorporate the round schoolhouse ruin arranged in Bibai, Hokkaido. The round school building was built in 1959, and a large portion of the understudies were the offspring of coal diggers who worked close by. After Japan began bringing in coal as opposed to mining it, the school was in the end deserted in 1974, with the vast majority of the furniture given up. The ruin has since a long time ago been an incredible fascination for apparition-chasing parties. The individuals who have conquered the forested areas to arrive at the old ruin have returned professing to have heard startling shouts repeating during that time and being assaulted by shadowy figures that leapt out at them from between the trees. It is likewise supposed that the individuals who really venture inside the structure return damaged, yet totally insane. Accordingly, 3 Spirits of the Land Down Under Beechworth Mental Asylum documentary, Into the Unknown EP1. While there are absolutely startling genuine animals to establish in Australia like extraordinary white sharks, enormous arachnids and snakes, there are likewise swarms of spirits unfit to move over to the opposite side. Or on the other hand, so it appears, in any event. In the neglected Beechworth Lunatic Asylum, a 80-year elderly person pulls at travelers' garments while a young lady mutters at the individuals who pass by near her, frantic to be heard. However, nobody can comprehend what she's colloquialism. At the Old Adelaide Jail, you may very well run into the soul of executioner Ben Ellis, who is as yet looking for compensation for the detainee who didn't pass on right away, yet rather held tight the rope for 22 minutes prior to drawing his final gasp. In the Monte Cristo homestead, the consistent shaking of chains makes guests aware of the presence of the soul of an intellectually sick patient named Harold, who was binded to a bed for a very long time before he kicked the bucket. The most spooky town in Australia is rumored to be Picton, with the Redback Range Railway Burrow singled out as the most spooky spot inside it. It is accepted that numerous individuals ended it all here and that a train mishap prompted the passing of a nearby young lady in 1916. Her soul is said to meander the passage right up, till today. Guests to the passage have revealed seeing figures unexpectedly showing up before them, spooky youngsters going around and white lights floating above them as they walk. 2 wandering apparitions. Hrad Svikov, Castle Svikov, Berg Svikov. Europe is saturated with history, which makes it the ideal area for startling encounters. The landmass has everything from frequented Victorian burial grounds and Jack the Ripper visits to vampire strongholds, dreadful sculptures, and priests frequenting the roads. At the Svikov Castle in Czech Republic, a nebulous vision frequented its occupants until 1597. Yet despite the fact that this soul ultimately disseminated, heavenly occasions preceded. This included creatures carrying on peculiarly for no clear explanation, and unexplained flames. A ghostly legend says that any individual who rests in the principal pinnacle of the stronghold will pass on inside a year. The castle of Brissac in Maine et Loire, France, houses the meandering soul of La Dame Verte, who was killed by her significant other after he found her being faithless to him. Guests to the stronghold have detailed seeing her phantom, wearing a green dress, with expanding openings where her eyes and nose used to be. The individuals who don't endure the disaster of being frightened stupid by her, can hear her groaning around the chateau. At that point there is the preserved body of 2-year-old Rosalia Lombardo that is kept in a glass case in the Capuchin catacombs of Palermo, Italy. The young lady has been completely safeguarded since her passing in 1920. A few guests are so overwhelmed by how lifelike her carcass is that they have become persuaded she actually flickers her eyes. 1 Hotel of the Undead. The Fairmont Banff Hotel, Canada's most haunted hotel, full movie. The Fairmont Banff Springs Hotel certainly equals the Overlook. Metropolitan rumors have spread far and wide suggesting that a lady of the hour tumbled down a stairwell at the inn in 1920 and passed on in a split second. She never left in any case, her hidden and wedding dress-clad soul appearing to a few visitors throughout the long term. Some of the time the rear of her dress is ablaze. In room 873 a man purportedly slaughtered his significant other and little girl, setting up the space for multitudinous apparition sightings to the degree that the lodging fixed up the room. Some have revealed seeing the impression of a little kid showing up on the divider where the entryway of room 873 used to be. Before it was for all time cut off, servants grumbled that they couldn't perfect wicked fingerprints from the washroom reflect, and unholy shouts woke visitors in the evening. In another region of the inn, a headless man shows up occasionally who, notwithstanding his absence of a head, actually figures out how to play the bagpipes, cracking individuals out as he meanders along.